सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्।
Chapter 12. This was the culmination of the second section, all about Bhagwan. Bhagwan starts where we are. Here he talks about principles of Karma Yoga. Start doing your duty. Don't focus on the results. Um, so, and whatever you do, just dedicate it to the Lord. That's kind of, at a high level. And what he talks about is bhakti yoga, jnana marga. There are 4 different ways that you can pray, get to the God. One is the praying to the infinitude, Brahman Satchitananda, who is nirguna, no qualities, nirakara, is formless and all pervading. Not everyone can do that. So there is the other form where it's Ishvara Satchitananda, Saguna, which has qualities, but still it's formless and it's still all pervading. And God says, if you cannot do that, there is Virat, which is Saguna, has qualities, and Sakara. So there is a form, but limited manifestations. And finally, there is all forms of God, like how we pray to Ganesha, Hanuman, where they have qualities, Saguna and Sakara, all different forms. And we can pray in whatever form we like, doing puja, offering, giving offerings. And there is, that's the form, like, I think a lot of us are aware of, and slowly we can build into the other forms, one after another. And if you need 3 main things to worship God, which is love for God and the discipline and faith. Those 3, you need the love and self-control through the discipline, right? Like you need to make sure that you have the faith, your head and your heart aligned, so you can pray to God in one of these forms. And he also talks about meditation and how you know you start with a simple thing and say, okay, you meditate on me. But if you're not able to do that, then he says, whatever you do, just offer it to me. Don't karma yoga, whatever you're doing, just offer the results to me. And that's how you dedicate everything that you do. Whatever you're doing, think about me. Just don't worry about the results. Just put in your best effort and do everything. And that's that's the karma yoga. And whichever way you choose, no one is left behind. Whichever path you use, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, karma yoga, just do it. And don't worry about anything. And keep everything aligned to God. And that's how you reach God. And even when you do your meditation, your thoughts might wander, but just keep coming back, simplify your life, and make every act as a worship to God. And um, there are 36 qualities of a devotee that he talks about. And start with one and And as you keep practicing that, you're able to get to the other qualities and you can achieve universal oneness with God. And Lord is present everywhere. Begin with the form and start worshiping there, and do it with love, do it with faith, and have a discipline about doing that, and then slowly you can graduate to the next levels. And I think once we don't focus on results, we don't have any anxiety, so our mind becomes purer and you're able to keep focusing and getting to the next levels. um, I think that's kind of um, the saransh of that. I don't know if I missed anything, Sashiji.
It's a,
um,
it's good, very good. So all you're right, Aparna. So Bhagwan is trying to help us and show what Bhakti Marga is actually here. I mean, that's the beauty of this. He's trying to show, and he's being very compassionate, as you said, saying where we are. If give up the results of action, he says that's actually very. He calls it superior because where we are, that might be the easiest. Because if we do not if we keep on focusing on action results, we'll not be able to do our very best. So we'll say, okay, I'll do this action and I'm the one who's performing it. The doership is there. Slowly, when we give up the results of, worry and anxiety about results, he says, then, you move up to the higher where you give up the doership to you. Say, Bhagwan is there, I'm his instrument. We'll have that attitude. So this is all still karma yoga. Then when with that now mind has become quieter, you can try that abhyasa yoga where you sit down and do meditation, but mind keep wandering, you just bring it back. You just bring it back. You just bring it back. And when you keep on doing this, practice is the key. You will then come to abide in my true nature, fix your mind in me, your intellect in me, Bhagwan says. That's very hard. That's now moving to the highest level of even that Saguna Upasana. It's hard. Saguna means with form, because nirguna not for everybody. You need to be prepared. Arjuna's question was that which is better, praying on the formless God or praying to the God with form. So Bhagwan has given all answers so that we start from where we are in this bhakti yoga and we keep moving. Even karma yoga is preparation, it prepares us. So everything, it's a complete instruction for a wholesome life so that we live life as a whole, not in fragments. Mind fragment, intellect fragment, shattered relation. No. Live a whole life with this whole vision, with this whole scheme I've given you, he says. Hmm? Very good. Excellent. So, Bhagavad Gita, as though arbitrarily, not that it's been mentioned anywhere in the Gita itself, but arbitrarily it's divided into three sections, and we know that. The 18 chapters, the first six chapters can be called as related to karma, the second six chapters to bhakti, and the third one to jnana. But also by a great person by name of Madhusudana Saraswati in the 15th or the 16th century. He said this can be also arbitrarily looked at as being the first six being related to the individual, you and me, and the second six related to Ishvaraha or Bhagavan or God, and the last six related to their unity or their aikya. So we have, I'll talk about it if we have any time towards the end on this what topic called Mahavakyas. But anyway, so this representation of the individual, the total or the Lord or Bhagavan, and the unity between them or the Aikya between them is expressed in a very, very famous Mahavakya called the Tat Tvam Asi. And this is from an Upanishad called Chandogya Upanishad, okay, where it's an identity revealing statement. It shows that you and I are also, in essence, nothing different from Bhagwan alone. Can you imagine raising us? We are of that status and we sort of somehow forget it along the way. Now, we all know that the first six chapters was about ourselves and our absolute nature, which is that Bhagwan said it's eternal, cannot be destroyed, is always there, it changes, it is a substratum of everything he had told us. And also our relative nature, meaning what we think we are right now, that also was expounded. And what are our duties, what are our responsibilities, how beautifully Lord Krishna has elaborated, how we should perform our duties where we are. We saw all those things about Karma Yoga as well. And after that, even how do we sit in our knowledge firmly? This Dhyana Yoga was pointed as well. Then, in the starting from the seventh, Bhagwan started talking about himself. Very clear idea now of what God is. We started getting through that, and not only that, he elaborated on how to appreciate the presence of Bhagwan everywhere, and not only to see everything in that one Bhagwan alone. It's everything is a manifestation of that one Bhagwan. So in that 11th chapter, that we Vibhuti, the Vishwarupa Darshana, Bhagwan actually showed everything as being included, good and bad, and no matter what, everything is already present in that Lord alone. So we are just, manifestation of that one truth alone. And then he very sweetly in the 12th chapter, he told us how to cultivate devotion and gave us such compassionate methods to start where we are. So that was the beauty of that. So now comes the last sections of the Bhagavad Gita, starting from the 13th chapter. So what does it deal with? It not only helps us more and more sit with our wisdom of knowing that the essence in me and the essence of the Lord are one and the same, so that we come to understand our true nature. In addition, certain topics which Bhagwan mentioned in other chapters are elaborated more so in the coming chapters. And not only that, you'll find some very practical points. Because what do we struggle with? We struggle with our mind, we struggle with our personality, we struggle with its mind's ups and downs. How do we make it more and more refined? Bhagwan will show us. Not only that, he'll show that this type of refinement can happen in anything, whether it's our duty, whether it is any tapas that we practice, or whether it's the food we eat. Unbelievable how to what extent Bhagwan goes to help us move on this path. So different things are pointed as we go along. So now in this session, what are we going to see? So don't get very scared and say, what are all these new terms and everything? I'll explain. It's nothing that you have not heard before. Bhagwan is going to, Arjuna starts in certain Bhagavad Gitas. You see that there is a question by Arjuna on this chapter. Not in all of them, but in certain Bhagavad Gita books, there's a question. It starts with a question of Arjuna, where he says, Bhagwan, what are these terms kshetra, kshetrajna, prakriti, purusha, jnanam, nyayam, and everything? What are all these things? Now, for us, how do we understand? You should have an overview, otherwise, it gets a little confusing. So, what Bhagwan's going to show is a separation between our true personality and everything else. Our true our true identity is only Sat Chit Ananda, pure consciousness. So Bhagwan wants to make sure that we are clear about it. So I'll give you an example now. So you all see this eyeglasses here, and this is Shashi here, right? So eyeglasses are known, and I'm the knower. This distinction I'm going to make now. Known and the knower. Nobody is going to argue with me. Eyeglasses are known, I'm the knower. You also can do a little experiment as you go along, the computer screen and me, like that. Then you come a little closer and I look at my bangles. It's right on my body, but I know these bangles. They are not me. So there is again this knower and these bangles which are known. Difference is there. Clarity is there in that as well. Now I look at my shawl, the same thing. This japmala I'm wearing, the same thing. Known, I'm the knower. Now I come closer and I look at this hand. And I say, is that known? It's part of me, but is it known? All of us will agree, of course. We know our hand. We know our hand. So that is still known, and there's a knower here. Then you say, is it your eye, Shashi ji? Is that the eye which is the knower and this is the known? Then they'll say, wait a minute, stop. Do I know the condition of my eyes without my glasses? Useless. Do I know that eye needs glasses? Sometimes my eyes are very dry, sometimes they burn. So I do know the condition of my eyes. So even my eye is known and there is a knower. So you see how I'm moving closer and closer to bring a separation between known and knower. Okay. Now I come even closer. I'll say it's my mind. It's the mind which knows everything. That is the knower. All other things, okay, I can see. Because mind, I just think it's me. Now you just again think, do I know when I'm sad? Yes, I do. Because I do say I'm sad. Do I know I'm very happy? Of course I say. Do I know when I'm peaceful? Yes. Arey, looks like even the conditions of my mind are known by me. So even mind is known and there seems to be a knower. Now let's all put it together and say, if there was no consciousness in this body, where is mind? Where are all these organs of actions? Where are these sense organs? Where is this physical body? Right? Nothing would be known. So right away, we can say there is this knower which seems to be the life-giving principle without which nothing can be known. That seems to be the true knower. That Bhagwan is pointing out in this. That Bhagwan will call it as Kshetrajna in this particular chapter, the knower of the field, he says. Kshetrajna. Jna means knower. No, it's one who has the knowledge. And the same Kshetrajna is indicated by another term in this chapter called, he says, calls it Purusha as well. Remember, Purusha, I keep telling us, Devis, we don't have to worry. Purusha is pure consciousness, okay, not a male figure. So Purusha, Kshetrajna is pure consciousness. And he says, everything else is Kshetra. Everything else has come from Maya Shakti, which is Prakriti, which has three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. So he's making that distinction very clear in this chapter because he said, you come this far. So you should now start making that distinction. Know your true identity. You are Kshetrajna. You are that Purusha. And you are one that has to be known. That one thing that has to be known truly is called in this chapter as Neyam. One to be known. So now we are very clear on these, the names. We'll go to it in a little bit more, but we now understand that Kshetra, Prakriti are the same. They mean anything else apart from that true consciousness. And that includes even my mind and intellect and everything else after that. That is Kshetra, that's the field. And the knower, pure consciousness, me, is called Kshetrajna, Purusha, that which has to be known, and therefore called Niyam in this chapter. Then to know this Purusha or this Kshetrajna, what do I need? In this particular chapter, he calls it Jnanam. And we'll understand the meaning here is a little different about Jnanam, but we'll get very comfortable with it at the end of the chapter. So we need Jnanam in order to know my true nature of that Purusha, Kshetrajna, Neyavastu. We have to know that, okay? And what is Jnanam in this particular chapter? It is all values and virtues that we have to bring into our lives. So in this particular chapter, Jnanam is values and virtues. And very beautifully, we'll get some more insights when we read this chapter. You know, many times we put ourselves down. We say, I don't think I'm good enough. Or, we say, I have such a low self-esteem. I don't feel like I'm like this person. We compare, we put ourselves down. This is our tendency, right? So we do that all the time. So here, in this particular chapter, we get some insights how our low self-esteem will go. They're a very useful and practical thing. And also, many for people we lead sometimes, very self-centered lives, right? With so much of attachment, unnecessary, causing problems to ourselves. All that possessiveness and, possessiveness with things which keep on changing and going away. So what's the use of becoming possessive about that because they will change and they will disappear? So how does that possessiveness go? What shift in my attitude will happen so that possessiveness goes? And then, a question which we ask many times, are you trying to tell me that the same Lord is in all saints and even those sinners, those criminals who are doing such terrible crimes? We feel like there's not an iota of Bhagwan in that person. And you're telling me it's the same Bhagwan in all of them? How does Bhagwan just watch all that happening? We get so upset sometimes. We'll get an insight into that. What exactly does it? Is Bhagwan not there? Is consciousness not there in a criminal? We'll say, oh, no, 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 no. He definitely has life. So we can't deny that. So we'll see how we can, understand that. How do I recognize this? You've seen before, but how do I recognize Bhagwan in all? And then when I reach that goal, what is the understanding that I'll have, or what will happen to me, and with what vision will I live in this world? So many pointers are given in this beautiful chapter. Okay, so please let's repeat. Mahabhutanyahangkarah
महाभूतान्य अहङ्कारः
बुद्धिरव्यक्तमेव च
बुद्धिरव्यक्तमेव च
इन्द्रियाणि दशैकं च
इन्द्रियाणि दशं कं च
पञ्चचेन्द्रियगोचराः
पञ्चचेन्द्रियगोचराः
इच्छा द्वेषसुखं दुःखम्
इच्छा द्वेषं सुखं दुःखम्
सङ्घातश्चेतना धृतिः
सङ्गस्तश्चात् दीर्घतिः
सङ्घात
सङ्गात
चेतना धृतिः
चेतनाधृतिः
एतत् क्षेत्रम्
एतत् क्षेत्रं
समासेन
समासेन
सविकारमुदाहृतम्
सविकारमुदावृतम्.
Okay, so Bhagwan is telling now, says, look, now I'm going to tell you what is all that known, That means knower is separate, known, right? He's making that very clear to us. He says it includes all 5 elements. Now, when you say 5 elements, it's for us to think, when Bhagwan says that, are everything made up of 5 elements or not? Is there earth matter? Is in some form, minerals or whatever? Is it there? Is it occupying space? Is there water in that? And also, is air a part of certain things, as well as, is there some heat? You analyze any object, you will find that some combination of 5 elements is there. So anything derived from 5 elements, everything of this universe are known, he says, included. They are kshetra. And in addition, he says, come down to you. Now, sometimes the sense organs and organs of action are combined and says 10, 10 of them. So our 5 sense organs and 5 organs of action, we know about them. We know their condition. So they also come under kshetra, he says. And of course, you know your mind. Of course, you know any sense objects. So all of them, everything that is known is coming under kshetra. So now you see, now he makes it even more subtle. He says all the sense objects that we see, any thoughts that arises in our mind, right? And then afterwards we have like to this emotions, and based on which we do certain actions, and then we gain certain emotions of joy, sorrow. Everything is known, belongs to kshetra. It's all matter and energy. He makes everything clear here. Even our thoughts are energy waves, electrical energy, chemical interactions. This is what's happening in the brain. That's why when you do MRIs, you can map areas where the mind is active. That's why they're able to study people when they are doing meditation and what happens to the brain waves, because they're all electrical energy impulses, chemical interactions, right? So everything is matter. And the other way you look at it, if there was no life, even if I put me under an MRI scanner, there'll be nothing of the mind there. So right away it shows that there is a separation, that these are all belonging to the elements and the unmanifest and manifest. Manifest means that we can see, obviously. Unmanifest means starting from Big Bang. Our scientists have studied Big Bang. Starting from that is, when it expands and all those little, molecules and things, and then there's a lot of interaction, the gaseous things. Everything is included as kshetra. Whatever we know is kshetra, right? And then Bhagwan, we'll be thinking now. What we'll be thinking? Oh, so okay, got it. Looks like, all this body and everything is kshetra. I understand, I'm getting it. So in each one of us, there must be a knower who's different from me. I would think you're different from me, right? So the knower too we think is different. He says, no, there's only one kshetrajna. And that's me, Bhagwan says. Huh? Right away, our true identity of kshetrajna is pointed out to us. That giving this physical body, this brain, including everything which is functioning right now, that life principle is kshetrajna, and that's me, and that's no different in anybody. There is no division in this consciousness. It is only one. It's the same in all, and it's changeless, and it is eternal. This is our true nature. It is very beautifully, our examples, we can keep on going, but we see so many light bulbs, so many electrical equipments. We look around in the house, we have so many things. Everything functions differently, everything looks different from each other. They have their own role, but that electricity is the same. Just like that, in you and me and underlying everything, there is one truth alone, right? That one truth. So now we are very clear about what kshetra is. It is not the knower, it is the known. It includes everything, all the subtle things that we can see, cannot, including our thoughts. Oh, that's a big revelation to us. He says everything else is, comes and goes, comes and goes. It's known, it changes. It is not my true nature. My true nature is the same as the Lord, that kshetrajna, he says. Then he says, we all say, I want to know that, what is enlivening me now, that Paramatma in me, I want to know that. How do I know that? Then Bhagavan says, gain jnanam. Oh, all this while you've been speaking, that knowledge, is that what I have to gain? Here, I use it in a different sense, he says. You have to make yourself a fit instrument to understand this truth in you, that this Satchidananda, Brahman, that Bhagavan is in us. To understand that, our mind needs to be prepared. We have to make it fit. And how do you make it fit? He says, you have to cultivate certain values and virtues in life. When you do that, when we do that, our mind becomes purified, means becomes quiet. Because when we live these things in our life, our mind is at ease. We become more and more peaceful. That mind is not disturbed. Such a mind, the more pure it becomes, it's easier to absorb such, beautiful, very subtle knowledge. It's not that this we've not been exposed to in any school education. This we have not heard in any of our universities. So this is totally new. Even when we're growing up, we see Bhagwan, but nobody's explained Bhagwan like this to us. That it's your and my nature. This is eternal in us. Who's told us all this? So mind has to be quiet. Mind has to be purified. So he says, if you have to know kshetrajna, you have to purify your mind. And earlier he told us, do karma yoga. Because karma yoga too, the attitude itself will make you very peaceful and quiet. That's one thing. But here now he's saying, you cultivate these values into your life, bring it into your life, then it becomes your virtue. With that, your mind becomes peaceful and prepared. Now in the world we see, people tell us all the time, we say, be truthful, and people will say, what's the use of being truthful? We find that, people who are giving bribes and doing all kinds of wrong things are also, gaining big positions, and they're doing very well in life. What's the use? Don't have to be Satya Harishchandra. People might say those things. Right? That means, we're losing value for values. Granted, to live a value uncompromisingly, 100% might not be my strength, right? I might not be able to do that. But if we value those, that's important, because it's still, there is a chance that we can move on these paths. But if we say, these values, what is this? What are you talking? Has no relevance in these days, okay? It's not applicable. Don't talk like this. Can't do anywhere. We don't have any chance. We don't have any, possibility of moving ahead on the path. No possibility. So this is very important to remember, that these values are important so that we can bring it into our lives, make my mind quiet, prepared, so that I can understand that Kshetrajna, who's my true nature. That's my true identity. This is why we have to bring Karma Yoga, these values, anything to help us. I'm not going to read this, there's no need, but these are beautifully, very, very famous shlokas in the 13th chapter, which talks about the values: amanitvam madambitvam, ahimsa kshantirarjavam, acharyo pasanam shaucham, stairyam atmavinigraha, and so on and so on and so on. Bhagavan will mention 20 values. 20 values that we should bring into our lives, which then becomes virtue. That's the difference. Value is what we hear, we respect, and then when it becomes part of me, I bring it into my life and I exhibit this in my life. That's called a virtue. So 20 of them he enumerates. This is Jnanam in this particular chapter. And I'll tell you, these are very common sense things, which all of us appreciate and want to see in others and in ourselves too. Others would like to see that in ourselves, and we would love to see that, because nobody likes people who are arrogant. Nobody likes people who are hypocrites. Nobody likes people who want to do himsa. Nobody likes that. Right? Nobody likes. So these values are needed not only in this spiritual path, Bhagavan is saying, but for all of us to have peaceful coexistence, we need these values and virtues. Okay? And when you do that, when you gain this, we prepare ourselves, we gain that knowledge of that Jnaya Vastu we talked about, that Kshetrajna, that Purusha, that Jnaya Vastu, referred here as that, we will come to know that. And when we know that, we understand our true immortal nature, our true unshaken nature. We'll come to know that. So, these 20 virtues I'm just mentioning here, you can look it up and study. But always we say, let us look at what connects with my personality. What seems to be something which I love and want to follow. Any of these, one or two of these. Because you say, oh my goodness, 20 of them I have to practice, and then only this Gita is getting difficult and difficult. I don't say that. We're already practicing so many of these in our lives, right? Already. So let's strengthen those, and even putting one or two in place, we'll see that others will just follow as well. So he gives these 20 values and virtues for us to consider and bring something which connects with that. Then how do we see this one Paramatma everywhere afterwards? If we cultivate these values, we gain the knowledge as Bhagavan is advising us. How do I understand that Kshetrajna is everywhere and see that one Paramatma everywhere? Beautifully he says, Sarvata Panipadam
सर्वतः पाणिपादम्
Tat Sarvatokshishiro Mukham
तत्सर्वतोक्षिशिरोमुखम्
Sarvata Shrutimaloke
सर्वतः श्रुतिमल्लोके
Sarvam Avritya Tishtati.
सर्वं मावृत्य तिष्ठति.
He says, look, if there's only one consciousness everywhere, in all, then every hands are that Lord's hands. Every set of pair of feet is his feet, because the owner is only one. Consciousness, 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 consciousness. Eyes, heads, mouth, ears, that alone is there, pervading everything. Then you know what happens? The more we start thinking like that, that sense of me separate from us goes. Slowly, yeah? These are things that bring to awareness, practice, think about it, and then you see you don't feel very different from another person. Just as in a family, you don't feel so different from your family members. You don't think of me, I'm a different person, you're different. So you have your room, you have your share of things, we don't do that at home. That difference is not there with my children or my family members. Now this will start extending. If this awareness comes to us, that knowledge comes to us by cultivating all those virtues and values, and I start understanding, I start feeling that. This was a very small experience I had. I think I've told you this. When I used to be in Mumbai, and then every evening we'd have to say prayers and each one would take prayers, turn to say those prayers in our temple. And we'd be in front of a mic, okay? So all of us had to practice and recite. And I remember if somebody said something wrong, didn't say the word exactly like what I knew or was familiar with or was supposed to be said, it was sort of would grate on our ears. You know what I'm trying to say? I'm sure you all do. It would be like, what are they saying? They're not saying it properly, right? But the more mind became quiet, it just one day felt like, it's me only expressing in a different way. Me alone expressing differently. So what? If that person did not say exactly like what I'm used to, that feeling starts coming. So that individuality goes away. And then, the other thing will feel, whatever I have right now, my capacities, my ability to do things, from who is the one who's giving all the thing to make it happen? Before it's like, Shashi, Shashi, Shashi. Now you say, Arey Bhagwan, if you're not here, these hands, these eyes, this mouth, this tongue, this brain, all my abilities are because of your presence. So I actually belong to you, Lord. Nothing would happen without your presence. And now you see, if it's the Lord who's already in me, how would I put myself down? How would I put myself down? Bhagwan is in my heart. When I say I put myself down means when I have so low self-esteem, we should never do that. Remember, even if you feel small, immediately say no. That Bhagwan is there, he will guide us, he will help me, he will make me able. I do not have to worry. You start saying that to yourself, because we are actually putting the Lord down. Lord down. So don't do that. And we won't even be miserable, because we'll say, you know what? I just have to access that already present Bhagwan. That Bhagwan I know is all powerful. All I have to do is keep my mind quiet, move closer to my true nature, and I'll be able to bring the best out of myself. Best out of myself. So you see, neither will there be any arrogance, neither will we suffer with inferiority complexes. There'll be so much humility, gratitude, understanding. What a blessing we have this life. God is giving us everything to function to the best, and also right behind me all the time. What a blessing. What a blessing this is. That Jnaya Vastu, right, is functioning through these instruments and is also there untouched. Always there. Right? This Paramatma is my true nature. So now you see this possessiveness, this holding on to things, this attachments. Everything belongs to that Paramatma. Who is that saying this is mine? Paramatma doesn't say. Paramatma says everything belongs to me. All are my children. Including this nature is my thing, only my manifestation. So now our vision starts expanding like you cannot imagine. So where is this I and mine? So you see, not only we drop that possessiveness, we are empowered. Empowered. We are now charged. We are inspired to go to that place of strength and access it, so that I live with that peace and harmony. This understanding will come to us. Otherwise, we remain individual, and go through that individual sufferings and things. The more I access and more I keep myself quiet, that totality will flow through us. Totality will flow through us. So all this is matter. It's an expression of that Paramatma. I'm that Kshetrajna, existence, consciousness, infinitude. All these are equipments I, that Paramatma, is using in this present existence, and therefore let me do my best. These instruments do the best. I'm not going to be born because I'm that truth. I'm that Paramatma. This understanding will come to us. Now the question, remember that question which really bothers us. How can, this Paramatma sit quietly when that poor criminal is doing such terrible things? We get very upset about it. But you see what happens. We'll recite this shloka now. Upadrashtanumanta cha
उपद्रष्टानुमन्ता च
bharta bhokta maheshwarah
भर्ता भोक्ता महेश्वरः
paramatmeti chapyuktah
परमात्मेति चाप्युक्तो देहा
paramatmeti chapyuktah
परमात्मेति चायुक्तः
देहेऽस्मिन् पुरुषः परः.
देहेऽस्मिन् पुरुषः परः.
All the names that are given here, Upadrashta, Anumanta, Bharta, Bhokta, Maheshwaraha, Paramatma, is that supreme consciousness in you and me. Okay? But if somebody is a criminal doing terrible things, that means their mind is so clouded with all, nasty thoughts, negative emotions, there is no place for any goodness to shine through them. So Bhagavan remains just a witness at that point. He is. Without his presence, none of those criminal acts can go on. Understand? But the criminal acts and everything is possible because we humans have been given an instrument called the intellect. Animals don't have that. Plants don't have that. With this intellect, we make choices. Bhagavan does not interfere. Bhagavan is there. He is totally impartial, giving life. Just like electricity doesn't care whether it's a light which comes out or it's, giving some, power to the computer. Doesn't matter. It's the same like that. Bhagavan is a witness in them. Cannot actually, will not participate. So he's called Upadrashta, then just a witness. Upadrashta just stays there and is a witness. Does nothing, will not interfere. Now you see how we become, when we make certain choices, how we are responsible. We're using an instrument there. Okay, silently observes. And then if my person has become a little bit, wanting to change and has some remorse, that means the mind has become a little quieter. The texture of the mind is not filled with negative emotions. So becomes quiet means Bhagavan is able to give us some clarity. And because of the clarity, we might be able to make better decisions. Now, this is called as Anumanta. We are as though permitting us, Bhagavan is permitting ourselves. In fact, what we have done is we have reduced our own negativity so that the Bhagavan can shine through. Now, if the more and more you become quieter, you brought some of these values into life, you've done some karma yoga and everything, it looks like there is help coming and from that Bhagavan, in the sense we ourselves have made ourselves available to be and to have more clarity in our thinking, more goodness to come to us. So it looks as though Bhagavan is becoming the nourisher, the Bharta. And more that attitude of humility is there, more and more that karma yoga is practiced in us, more and more these values are coming into our life. As we even do our things, whatever work we are doing, whatever, everyday duties we are doing, the joy is in the work. Just doing the work, we are happy. We're not looking for anything. So it looks as though Bhagavan is enjoying now. He's become the Bhokta. And more our ego has been kept quiet, right? Believe it or not, we do things with such clarity that every action of ours looks very fantastic. It's like a Mahatma Gandhi who was with no wealth, nothing, but he was the leader of the world, could think with such clarity, mobilize people. True lordship comes to them. And when everything of our ego is gone, Bhagwan says, Are, you're me, you're Paramatma yourself. So you see how he functions in a criminal, and how through the process of the journey, we bring that Paramatma into our life. God is not sitting just in a puja mandir. God is not man or woman. This should become so clear after study of Bhagavad Gita to us. And we all have the ability to manifest this Bhagavan in our life. Vivekananda would always say, purpose of life is to manifest divinity. And here we have so much of, guidance as to how to bring this Bhagavan into our lives. So how do I then recognize this Bhagavan everywhere? Dhyanenatmani pashyanti
ध्यानेनात्मनि पश्यन्ति
केचिदात्मानमात्मना
केचिदात्मानम् आत्मना
अन्ये साङ्ख्येन योगेन
अन्येन साङ्ख्येन योगेन
कर्मयोगेन चापरे.
कर्मयोगेन चापरे.
It is just one little refresher for us. Bhagwan is saying, you can do dhyana yoga if you're all very qualified, and if you come to that, that will help you to recognize this Paramatma everywhere. Otherwise, I've given you a lot of instructions. You study Shastra, you gain knowledge, right? All that I've been speaking all this time. Or you do yoga abhyasa, the Ashtanga yoga of Patanjali Maharaj. You follow that, absorb your mind, or just do karma yoga where you are. And bhakti, karma, so many paths I've given. And if you say, oh, Bhagavan, all those is difficult too, he says, don't worry. He says, Anye tvevamajanantaha
Anye tvevamajanantah
Shrutvanyebhya upasate
Shrutvanyebhya upasate
Tepi chati tarantyeva
Tepi chati tarantyeva
Mrityum shruti parayanaha.
Mrityum shruti parayanaha.
So he says, don't worry. If you don't have this, you will also be able to get over this mrityu, meaning death, or this constant fear of change. You will also be able to get over it. How do you do this? Don't worry. You just follow what instructions your guru gives you. Have somebody you follow. Have this role model who's guiding you to your best, right? And have faith. This is very important. So, the Shraddha is stressed a lot in our scriptures. Some people have both Shraddha and they have this ability to do logical thinking. They have that, ability to follow. Very good. Some people say, I don't want to think too much. I just have faith in my guru. Whatever they say, I'll follow. Very good. You also will succeed. Don't be the one who has no Shraddha and no interest in thinking as well. Such people, only want to argue. And for us, instruction should be, don't argue with those people. Don't get into arguments with such people, because we are also following a path with so much faith. We do not want our faith to be shaken up. So do whatever path, you will be able to recognize that Bhagavan. You will be able to get that right vision. Dhyana, karma, sankhya, any path you follow, yoga, but have faith and you follow, says Bhagavan. That's it. That's all you need. He says, if I do that, Bhagavan, what then will be my vision as a lead this life? What else will you see? You'll see samam sarveshu bhuteshu
Samam sarveshu bhuteshu
tishtantam parameshwaram
Tishtantam parameshwaram
विनश्यत्स्व विनश्यन्तम्
विनश्यत्स विनश्यत्स्यन्तम्
यः पश्यति स पश्यति
यः पश्यति स पश्यति
समं पश्यन् हि सर्वत्र
समं पश्यन् हि सर्वत्र
समवस्थितमीश्वरम्
समवस्थितमीश्वरम्
न हि हिनस्त्यात्मनात्मानम्
न हि हिनस्त्यात्मनात्मानम्
ततो याति पराङ्गतिम्
ततो याति परां गतिम्.
This person, when we understand this truth in us, following all that instructions Bhagavan has given us, whatever suits our personality, we follow that one path, and we then what do we see? We see that sameness everywhere. We will definitely see all things differently, but we'll never forget that there is this underlying oneness. When that happens, what do we see manifest in our life? We never degrade, we never lower ourselves or others. Okay, we stop looking at ourselves as an individual, only this body, right? That's actually, in fact, it's an insult to ourselves. We're not that. So we actually recognize divinity and all, we elevate our vision to that, and then this state is called as reaching Paramatma. And if you say, how do we know that person has reached Paramatma, Bhagavan? Is there any tips that we can understand? He says, yeah, you do. He says, यथा भूतप्रतिग्भावम्
यदा भूतपृथग्भावम्
एकस्तम् अनुपश्यति
एकं स्थमनुपश्यति
तथा एव च विस्तारम्
तथा एव च विस्तारम्
ब्रह्म सम्पद्यते तदा.
ब्रह्म सम्पद्यते तदा.
When we recognize that same Paramatma everywhere, that Paramatma alone is appearing as all these people, all these things. And remember all that we studied in the 10th chapter, in the 11th chapter, it starts coming into my, understanding, my memory, and it's become my wisdom whenever I want, right? When that has happened to us, then that person is realized. We understand my true nature is always there. It is changeless. It will never perish. That's me. That's the true nature of everybody else. All other things come and go, right? And not only that, my true nature is not touched by all the ups and downs that this mind goes through, that this physical body goes through. My true nature is untouched. And to give this to once again strengthen our understanding as far as this untouched thing, because it's very hard for us to comprehend, Bhagwan will give us two examples. How does it remain untouched, Bhagwan? Is there some example you can give me so I can at least think about it? I will give you, he says. I will give you, and he gives two beautiful examples. Yatha sarvagatam saukshmyat
यथा सर्वगतं सौक्ष्म्यात्
आकाशं नोपलिप्यते
आकाशं नोपलिप्यते
सर्वत्रावस्थितो देहे
सर्वत्रावस्तु ते तो देहे
तदात्मानोपलिप्यते
तदात्मानोपलिप्यते
यथा प्रकाशयत्येकः
यथा प्रकाशयत् एक
कृत्स्नं
कृत्स्नं
लोकमिमं रविः
कृत्स्नं लोकम् इमं रविः
क्षेत्रं क्षेत्री तथा कृत्स्नं
क्षेत्रं क्षेत्री तथा कृष्णं
Kritsnam.
कृत्स्नं
Prakashayati Bharata.
प्रकाशयति भारत.
Two simple examples that we can easily understand. He says, look at space. Huh? Space in which there's so many objects. And we think we are dividing space by building walls, right? Or keeping objects, right? We think, this is a mug and the space here is different. He says there's no difference. There's complete continuity of space. Even through atoms, there's space. Even through all these, walls and desks and cups and mugs and there is space. Continuous. It looks as though it's broken, it's untouched. Space is not affected by any limitation you try to put on it. Planets, stars, it doesn't matter. Untouched by any of those things. Right? We know that. Neither can, fire do anything to space. Neither can, water or heavy rains do anything for space. Right? Or, terrible smell will, of course, affect the air. But does that do anything to space? Nothing. Even as subtle as that, nothing can be done. So when space is not, just as space does not get affected by anything, our Atman, that pure consciousness which is everywhere, is untouched. So yes, this body might go through so many, this is practical for us now. Body might go through so many things. Mind has its ups and downs. One day, 1 minute like this, 1 minute like that. But array, I'm that pure consciousness, untouched like space. So nothing, affects me, is the wisdom that starts coming to us. Wisdom comes to us. And then he says, look at that sun. The sun is giving light to everything here on this earth, right? And because of its presence, the day has started, things start growing, people start moving, activities happen, there is energy. Without a cold sun means the whole thing is gone. This completely, life is gone. We know that. But the sun, is it participating in any of this thing? Huh? The sun illumines everything. By its presence, everything is energized, right? It's again untouched by any activities. Activities are keeping on happening here. Untouched. Untouched is my Satchidananda nature. That nature of mine, nothing happens to it. That's my true nature. So that is the same in all. So this Bhagavad Gita's message of unity and that equality, over and over again it comes. Because we are the humans, we can understand this, who can bring this to our wisdom and live this in our lives. That's why Bhagwan is stressing this so many times. There's only one consciousness. He concludes this chapter now with a beautiful conclusion which says, Kshetra kshetragnayorevam
क्षेत्र क्षेत्रज्ञयोरेवम्
antaram jnana-chakshusha
अन्तरं ज्ञानचक्षुषा
bhuta-prakriti-mokshancha
भूतप्रकृतिमोक्षं च
ye viduryanti te param.
ये विदुर्यान्ति ते परम्.
So he says, be that person who understands the distinction between the known and the knower. This is for us to think. He says, be that person. Kshetra, kshetragnya. Then prakriti, purusha. Start making that distinction. What is my true nature? And what is this which I'm right now identified with, my relative nature? Understand that. Gain this wisdom. Cultivate those values, gain this wisdom. And then you understand your own true nature, which is not different from me. You gain that supreme truth. Says Bhagwan in this beautiful, very methodical chapter. So many of our questions are answered through this. And let me just see what's the time. Oh, okay. I wanted to talk about Mahavakyas, but that's okay, some other time. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ. Any questions from 13th chapter?